Hello, everyone. This is Auretha, your soul stylist and intuitive coach, and I am talking today with the amazing and fabulous Cheryl Merz of EnchantedEye.com. And
hello.
Hey, sweetie, how are you?
Beautiful. How are you?
Hey, I'm just about to go off racing because I'm so excited about this call. Let me just tell everybody a little about you first. Cheryl, first of all, was a client of mine, a style client, and we had a lot of fun glitterifying Cheryl. I cannot do anything without glitter without thinking of Cheryl. So she's adorable. So Cheryl has an ability to communicate with guides, energies, and entities in order to provide clarity and vision for people in the area of relationships, their creative work, business, health, and really particularly in grieving and releasing the dead, which I think is a very unique aspect of Cheryl's business. Cheryl is an intuitive guide and a channeler. Well, I don't know if she calls herself a channeler, but the thing that I think is so amazing about my work with Cheryl is the amount of clarity and peace that she brings to her sessions, but also Cheryl is a very down-to-earth person. And so anyway, I just wanted to mention to everybody what my experience of Cheryl has been. Cheryl, is there anything you want to add to that?
You covered it really well. Yeah, that's it's all about my biggest focus is about providing clarity for anything that people want it for. So, when I teach people about their intuition, you can use your intuition from everything from finding a good parking place, or intuiting who's calling when the phone is ringing, or to talking to your grandmother who died 20 years ago. It's just kind of, whatever. My whole brand of intuition is making it personal, making it real for you. And so when I work with clients, I work on creating clarity for them in a way that makes sense for them, in their language, in their world, in their reality, because that's where you're living. You're living in your reality, not mine.
And I really love that when you work with people, and then, we'll get to the call, but, when you work with people, you don't leave them with a sense of fear.
No. There's so much grace with this work. And if anything, no, it's just the opposite. And I would say that's pretty much across the board. Everybody that I work with leaves with a sense of calm, peace, understanding themselves better, kind of a plan of action for the next step, or at least how to approach the next step.
That's awesome. And you are a good coach with that. So Cheryl, I want to tell you why I wanted to talk to you.
Yeah,
and I wanted to share why. Okay, so I know that you've recently been traveling quite a bit. You've traveled a lot since I've known you, and I had a little upset the last couple days because my family was scheduled to come down and do Thanksgiving. We're going to travel south to go visit family, and then everything changed, and now they're not coming. And so I was put in a position where I was like, crap, I am now going to have to drive a couple hours. Yeah, do I want to do it? Do I not? And I was like, driving someplace I'd never been before, and really was considering maybe a 3 or 4 day trip by myself. And and the fun part, is I have experience with Airbnb, and I thought, that's fun, and there's a couple cool places I knew I might want to go, but I was really just kind of thinking about what a freaking pansy I am when it comes to doing any kind of adventure by myself, and I swear I I stayed with Brett for 11 years, you know, because he was so awesome at travel and adventure. And then, you know, here I am on my own, and I kind of suck at it. And I thought, who would take this challenge on with glee? And I thought Cheryl would.
Yeah. There's all of a sudden when plans change, my first response is a feeling of freedom, a feeling of, well, now what can I do? Well, what's next? What's possible? What could I do different? Yeah, and the idea of, I mean, you're going to see people that you know, right? So
right.
Setting out, you know, you've got some common base, and yeah, it's just like, okay, how can I make this fun?
So Cheryl, I would like to know, you know, I know when I look back at my parents, you know, they really didn't go on trips with us kids. They really didn't teach us to travel. They went on trips. And I noticed that I have a lot of fear around doing things by myself. I'm finding if somebody shows me, like, where to go, where to park the first time, and then I can go back by myself. But I notice I have anxiety around doing things by myself, trips, traveling. Do you know why you're so brave about travel?
I'm brave. You know what I do is I almost always have a strategy. So it may seem like I wing it, but if I'm driving somewhere, I have a map, and I don't just have a map on my phone. I a lot of times will print it out. I have an itinerary. I have details, and so for me, having those base points allows me not to be so fearful about the trip. So sometimes, like when I went to Costa Rica a couple of years ago, I was going to stay at a friend's place, had no idea, you know, where we were going, what to expect. I knew I had my plane ticket, though, and I had some little maps that I printed out on the internet, which ended up being pretty useless because it was really rural. And
Costa Rica is
my
so
friends
rural.
were gonna,
exactly.
and my friends were going to send a car to pick us up, but they were, you know, we were staying at their place, and they were heading out of town, and they forgot to schedule the car. So we got there, and there was no car to pick us up, so we had to figure that out. But it was just kind of like, you know, to me what keeps me grounded is just those little pieces of things that I think that I know. Now, what happens a lot of times is I don't really know what I think I know, but the part of me that wants to feel safe with some knowledge has a little piece of knowledge to go with until she gets a new piece of knowledge.
So I've noticed, Cheryl, that you're very committed to travel.
Yes.
So talk to us about that commitment to travel as far as budget, as far as how many times a year.
Well, as many times a year as I can go. My goal, my target, I guess, or my ideal is a foreign country at least once a year, and then the ocean at least once a year, and those two might not always be the same thing, and then something to connect me with my family at least once a year. And then the rest of it is kind of playtime. You know, I'll throw in long weekends or, you know, squeeze in whatever it is that I have. I own a timeshare, and timeshares seem kind of hokey. But one thing that they're cool about, and it is a selling point, is they always tell you it forces you to travel, which it does. And I own property in Hawaii, so I have like a really tradable piece. And what it's done, it's a little challenging at first, but once you figure it out, it's a really nice commodity to have, and you can shift it into other things. It almost multiplies sometimes, especially owning in Hawaii. If I have a week there, it can translate into 2 weeks in a lot of places, or it can translate into other opportunities. And, you know, timeshare presentations are kind of funny to go to, but there are a lot of aftermarket and resale timeshares out there. I don't want to turn into a timeshare salesperson.
No, but this is good. This is great information.
But on the affordable, on how to afford things sometimes, this is a piece that most of the time when I travel, I don't pay for a place to stay because I'm working some kind of a deal through the timeshare ownership. So at least one, maybe 2 of those weeks is through that. And, I bought mine, right from the resort. And the thing is you can buy timeshare weeks on eBay, on redweek.com. You can buy them. Like, there are a lot of people that buy them that get into them that don't want them. It is kind of a hassle, but there's also this kind of a fun component of, okay, well, how can I optimize this thing that I own now? Mine, I've owned it for years and it's paid for, and so it's just a toy. I pay my maintenance fee once a year, and so there's a little bit of expense there, but not when I get to at least 2 weeks of vacation a year out of it. It's not. So on the affordability side, that's the thing. Knowing people, I have like a really broad community now. All of my friends that might have been close are someplace else now, and so I have people to go visit. And even if I don't stay with them all of the time, it's another touchstone that I have in another place. And now my community is spreading to other continents and other parts of the world, and so I just stay in touch with them, and that helps with the information, the affordability, just access to more of the world, which is, one of the things that fires me up the most.
Wow. Now, tell us about your recent, actually, tell us where you've been, let's say, within the last 2 years.
Within the last 2 years? Let's see. I have been to 2 years. Mexico, Las Vegas, the Caribbean, the Virgin Islands, and Bahamas. I've been to Costa Rica. Let's see.
Didn't you just go to Machu Picchu? Wait,
oh
was
my
that
gosh.
somebody else?
How did I forget I went to Peru in May. Let's see, I went on a trip before that. Oh, New Orleans. I get to New Orleans probably once a year. I absolutely love the music and the spirit. There's so much spirit in New Orleans, so I go there as much as I can. I did a South Carolina trip with my family.
Wow.
Oh, and I last summer, not this past summer, the summer before, I went to Lilydale in New York, and that's a town of mediumships where I go and I'll do some studying and some practical work and some observation of the masters of this work. And so that's kind of a work and inspiration trip.
How awesome. I am so impressed. Now, I can imagine that you've learned tons of things, and I know we can't go over all of that in this call, but, it might be something you might want to do a call on, Cheryl, just to share with other, especially women who, like me, we want to travel, but we didn't really grow up with that in our family history, and so it feels scary. And,
okay, well, something to get, Auretha, is I didn't grow up with it in my family history either. We all packed into the car once a year and maybe went to the beach, and my mom didn't have a lot of money, so she would rent a little trailer at this campground at less than 2 hours from where we lived, and we'd go. That was our vacation. And our vacation was campfires and s'mores and sleeping in a camper.
That actually sounds just perfect to me. But so how did you make the transition to becoming this international frequent traveler?
I just love it. I love to go. I love new places. I love new experiences. And I got a passport, and and I have friends that want to go, and I'm always listening for the opportunity. But I'm just curious. I'm curious about other cultures. about other places, about, what's out there in the world. And that's mostly what fires it, is just that I just want to see new things.
Cheryl, what would you say to, and I'm just, mainly my audience is women. I mean, I've got a ton of men who listen in too, but, what would you say to a woman or a person who would say, well, I don't want to go by myself?
You don't have to go by yourself. Okay, so how my Peru trip happened is I work out at this gym, and this woman that I know through a mutual friend, she said one day, I want to go to Peru. And I said, well, I want to go too. She said, okay, let's go together. And she came over one day. We researched trips and travel companies and made a few phone calls, asked a bunch of questions. And within 48 hours of that conversation, we had a trip booked. We'd never traveled together, but, I knew of her through someone else. And so that's the first thing, is you don't necessarily have to go alone. There are a lot of other women who want to go. I've been researching the Camino de Santiago in Spain and Portugal, and I was talking to a friend, and he said, you don't have to know anybody. He says people just it's a tribal thing, and people will just connect up. And I started following this page on Facebook, and there's actually a group of single women pilgrims, people who walk the Camino, who communicate through a closed Facebook group. And so you just ask to join, and then there are meetups and strategies. And so if you want to do something adventurous like that, the Camino, if you don't know it, is a 300-mile pilgrimage walk through Spain and Portugal. And so it's about, a 30, it could be a 30 to 40-day walk and on your own. And the thing is there are structures out there to be able to do it. There are clubs where people can go on cruises alone. And, you think, oh, gosh, who would want to go on a cruise alone? And I've met people on cruises. My son loves to cruise, so we go every couple of years. And there are singles groups that, they have like a social on the ship. And so there are structures out there that just support you if you want to go alone. And really, if you have this voice or this inkling that I want to go, trust that somebody else is going to stand next to you in a class or in a at a party or something, and says, hey, I want to do this, and you say, hey, I want to do this too, and boom, you just plan it and you just go. And the Peru trip was a fabulous trip.
I love it.
So the single traveling is like there are resources out there. I'm going down to taking a kind of a reconnaissance trip. I'm itching to move from where I am in Salt Lake, and I'm doing kind of this reconnaissance trip down to Arizona to look at a couple of towns and places and possibilities. And so my strategy with that is to do Airbnb, because you're staying in someone's home. And so then even though you're traveling alone, you've got kind of a touchstone. You've got somebody that you can talk to, somebody you can ask questions with. I've started following meetup groups in the area so that I can touch base,
What an excellent strategy about using the meetup groups. Wow.
Yeah. So I can see what kind of things is, and then you just have to be willing to at least put yourself, and I'm not, like, Auretha, you are friends with everybody and you talk to everybody, and I'm a little bit quieter, and I'm not super social. I'm social enough, but I'm not like out there, and I don't talk to strangers easily. And at the same time, when I'm out in the world or in a new place, you just instinctively find a restaurant, coffee shop, or the Airbnb. You find somebody that you can interact with, and that just leads to the next person and the next connection. And so some of this is, material knowledge and data, and the rest of this is kind of just the intuitive, just one step to the next, to the next, to the next,
Cheryl, I love it. Okay, so just another quick question. It's kind of technical, but do you use a travel agent or do you find your own flights? I mean, that's kind of intimidating because it's so, oh my God, it's you look for one ticket online and it's like 100 pages open up and oh my God.
I do a combination of both. If I'm going into a place where I'm not familiar, like with the Peru trip was because I wasn't familiar with the country. I went on a group tour. So I plugged in with a group of maybe 20 other people who went to the same places and did the same things. And it was really nice because you had you had a group that you traveled with and they all spoke English and, there was a little bit of familiarity with it. And so when I go to other countries, well, no, not always, but, with this, and going to Machu Picchu and all of that, it was like the guided tour made sense because I wanted to see a lot of the country, and I don't want to drive in Peru.
And it sounds safer too,
Yeah. It's safer to go in a group, and the thing is there was a single person in that group too, so you can be a single traveler and plug into a group tour. And then you participate in it as much as you want. That's the other part of whenever you travel is, you know your limits. You know how much you want to do. You know your physical exertion. Peru was a little challenging because of the altitude. It's like you have to know yourself enough to say, okay, this is enough. Even though the whole group is going in this direction, you can say, I'm going to wait. I'll wait for you to come back. Those kinds of things. Knowing what you're doing. And then other countries like, Costa Rica, we were kind of blind. We just landed and said, this is where we need to go. And the thing is like, it's the same thing. They're just like, Costa Rica is such a generous, gracious country. The culture, the people, everybody was just so willing to help, and so willing to be useful, even though they didn't, speak English. And I know really not much Spanish, That was a funny trip.
I had an experience like that. Costa Rica and Puerto Rico was also like that for me. Such friendly people, and Puerto Rico, mainly people speak English. So that was how my friend coached me to start my first international trip in Puerto Rico because they spoke English, but you were still getting the Latin culture, and we just absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
So you may have to add that to your list, Cheryl.
Okay.
Okay. So one other question, and then we'll shift gears. How do you know when to come back? I know for me, I have like this perfect zone of time that I like being gone. What have you found to be true for you as far as how long to go for?
Well, that comes back to that piece that I mentioned about kind of knowing yourself, and so you don't have to be gone. It's not about the amount of time you're gone. It's knowing your threshold. So I would say that I could be gone for a month or 2 months, but then I know myself, so it's like I know when I need to have breaks. I know when I need to be alone, when I need to not be out touring. Like I couldn't do constant, like the Peru trip was one site to the next, to the next, to the next for a whole week, and it was really intense, and it was really active, and it was great, but we had little breaks of bus rides. We had really amazing accommodations, so I had some downtime, but there was also some group things that everybody did that I bowed out of, group dinners or drinks where I said, what, no, I'm going to go soak in the tub, and so that's how you pace yourself through it. And it's all kind of getting the lay of the land on the front end. How busy am I going to be? If you're just going to Cancun to lay on the beach, you may be able to stay there for a couple of weeks, I mean, depending on how much you overindulge, maybe you need to come back after a couple of days.
If you meet any cute cabana boys.
Yeah. Yeah, that too. But
they might want to marry you.
we were in Cozumel a couple of years ago, and so what we had was like it was an all-inclusive optional thing, which is a nice thing. Most resorts are like they force you to do all-inclusive or you can't do it at all, and this we could pick our days. So we had every other day at the resort where we did all-inclusive, and then we got out and did excursions the other days. And so we pushed really hard and did there's just a lot of these countries that you go to, you have to expect to spend time in transit. And, if you're going 60 miles in Costa Rica or 60 miles in Mexico, it's not like going 60 miles at 75 miles an hour in the U.S. The road conditions are different. Everything is different, and so it may take you 2 hours to go that way. And so just kind of like understanding what to expect as much, and then be patient with the downtimes and accept the downtimes and take breaks when you can, and then you can endure for more time, But if you go really hard, like the Peru trip, after a week I was ready to come home because we just went. So it's like the length of the trip all depends on how you structure it and how you push yourself. And the way to have a good time is to really understand when you need breaks and when you can really aggressively be a tourist. And I think that's what makes it the most fun, is to make a combination of, you don't want to leave yourself behind. You want to bring yourself in that good book, and, maybe you don't go out and see the city lights one night and you stay in and read and soak in the tub, and then the next day you're like ready to go at it 100% again.
Cheryl, I can't even believe how I'm so happy that I asked you this question. I love the wealth of information that you just shared. Now, the second topic that I wanted to discuss with you, and some people may know my story, just very briefly, that I started having dreams about leaving Salt Lake about a year before I left, and then for 5 years prior, I knew that I didn't want to live there. I just was not comfortable. I was not happy, and it really affected my psyche and my business, but I didn't know where I wanted to go to. So you were just saying to me, and if you just kind of go from there, what you just said to me today, which is the first time I've heard this.
Yeah, and it is new. So I've been in Salt Lake for 19 years now. I moved when my son was a year old, and he's 20 now. And, it's always been a place. When he was growing up, I knew, this was where we were going to live, and it was fine. When I moved here, I found a great tribe of people and had a really good connection. But what's happened this past year when I come home, and I think that's probably why the last 2 years I've been traveling a lot more than I always have traveled, but just the last couple of years it's just been I go from one trip to the next. When I come home on a flight, I always have the next flight planned. I always have the next trip, and it's been like that for the last 2 years. And this past year, coming home doesn't feel so much like home anymore. It feels like I've kind of hit my limit here. It feels, Utah's always been how it is. It's always had its politics, and the politics are probably gentler now than they've ever been, but it feels harsher. It feels like I'm just feeling myself want to go to a more harmonious place. My business actually it continues to do well. The nice part is I've been picking up a lot more global clients, people who are long distance who don't need to see me face to face, which is terrific, because then they don't care if I live in Utah or Arizona or Hawaii, So I'm just feeling that place of like it doesn't feel like home anymore. And
Cheryl,
what I just did, I had my birthday in October, and so my birthday gift to myself was having an astrocartography map done. And what that is it takes your astrology birth chart and maps it across the world. And if anybody wants to contact me later, I have a terrific referral. This guy did a fabulous job. He sends you the map, and and then you can do a reading with him, and he explains everything. And so I understand some basics of my astrology, but one thing that I saw was that through Salt Lake, Pluto runs through my Salt Lake, and Pluto runs through Salt Lake, and what Pluto is the planet of death, rebirth, transformation. I've done a lot of growth. I've done a lot of self-realization here, but Pluto is also very harsh, and I think that's the energy that I'm feeling right now, is that harshness. And so I'm seeking a place that's more in line with my Venus line. And so the closest place to here that my Venus line falls is in the Phoenix and Tucson area. And so I'm going to go there. And so my first trip there is my reconnaissance is going to be about a 10 or 12-day trip just to see what it feels like, see how I connect with the people. And that's kind of my first place, because I didn't know. Like, I love the beach, but I have, I have kind of stories, or I have this energy that I pick up of everywhere that I travel to that hasn't quite felt like it was the place. And so I watch I watch astrology. I've been familiar with my astrological makeup for a long time, and so I thought, well, this makes sense for me to, again, this is my language, this is something that makes sense to me, and I'm like, okay, I've got the whole planet, like I could figure out how to live anywhere. So let's look at the world on a map, and a map that's aligned with my energy, and see where these pieces fall. So, we'll start there, and if then maybe I'll start to look in Mexico. Bali was on there, Maybe I will end up in Bali, and then you all will know me in Bali, and so when you go out on your travel adventures, you can come visit.
Now that sounds like a plan.
I'm starting with Arizona, though, because it's close, and I really just, right now, I would like to find a place where I feel balanced. Like, my life is balanced. I have everything is good in my life, but there's a part of me that feels like the energy here, the harshness of the energy that seems to just kind of pull at me emotionally. And so I'm ready to seek out someplace where I feel a little bit more harmony. And I don't believe, they always say that happiness is not geographic, and I don't necessarily believe that. I believe that there are places.
Amen.
Yeah. I believe that there are places where energetically we just feel more ourselves. Yeah, we have to know how to make ourselves happy no matter what. I've been happy when it's been minus 10 degrees in Fairbanks, Alaska, and it's so cold. And yet I find a place that, it's beautiful there. You can be happy there. You can be happy anywhere, but really, this place where you can feel at ease, you can be more yourself. I think that is a geographic thing. I think, there are places where we really feel good, and we really feel, our own power really rise up and expand into the world. And so that's, it's been really good for me. I've learned a lot about myself, and that's that Pluto aspect that, I've really gotten to understand a lot about myself in Salt Lake, but I've had some really harsh lessons too, and so now I'm ready for a little more ease with it.
Cheryl, I'd like to say that, within our peer group of all these amazing women and entrepreneurs that, you and I know, I think I want to say that I was one of the first ones that left. And then slowly, and I was seeing it intuitively, you could see more and more people start to get uneasy. And I like to liken it to the feelings of the way that a mama bird pulls the feathers out of the nest.
To make it uncomfortable so the babies will leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I had a peer group. Before I met you, I was part of this circle of women, and one has just come back, but until very recently, I was the only one of us left here. all of them had scattered, and now one of them has come back, but the other two won't. The others, they won't come back. They're on and off to other things. So it's I've kind of watched all of my friends, and the cool thing is like we're still connected. We're still so deeply connected. You and I haven't seen each other face to face for over a year, and it's like we're always a part of our lives.
Right.
You're always a part of my life. So.
You're right, and I think
that's the nice thing too. Is we're able to continue to stay connected, and so then we can fly from the nest really easily because our spirits are still intact and connected.
Well, that's what I think I wanted to share this message was because. I know for me, and it's funny. I'm not a totally superficial person, but I love Nick James, my hairstylist, and he's my dear friend, my very, very like a brother to me, just a sacred soul. And when I knew that I was making the decision to move, that was my first grief. Was like, oh God, I've got to leave Nick And then it was all these, this close group of about 10 amazing women, of which you are one, that I was like, I can't believe that the connection between these women friends, it was so deep. But I knew that Cheryl, the feeling I had is if I didn't leave Salt Lake, that I was going to die.
Yeah, and a piece of us does die when we don't listen. Yeah.
And it sounds so dramatic, but I mean, like you're saying, like I am an intuitive, and I think I have a lot of Celt and maybe some Druid in me, and for some reason, my soul was starting to feel drained from the land that I was living in because I didn't connect with it.
Yeah, and that's the nice part. Like that's how the travel has sustained me because I get out and I get that stimulation, and when I always have a new place to go and see, even if it's not my future place, it's a new place, and that that keeps me excited and revved up and
right.
Moving, yeah.
Well, I'd like to start wrapping up the call, but I just wanted to leave everyone with one piece of advice, and also for you, my love, is when you do find your home, do a better job than I did of Skyping your friends, because when you're you and I are single women, and when we find our place, it really helps to not only talk on the phone, but really the video conferencing with friends. For me, I have noticed a huge difference, and I wish I would have done it a lot more, and life would have been a lot easier these first 2 years that I've been here. And but Cheryl, I know you don't need luck because you're already blessed and you're already divinely led. But and for everyone listening, we just send you just right now this amazing energy towards you to find your perfect place on this planet and to be blessed.
Got it. Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else you want to say, wrapping up? And please tell us, how do people get in contact with you if they'd like to do a session with you?
Yeah, so another thing, I just want to do a quick blurb about how I've worked with people. Like just last week, I worked with a client in Florida. She's there for school, trying to find the right place to live, and I've done this several times with people, is just like not doing the astrocartography, which I promoted that. I didn't promote my piece. But what I've done with people is helping them energetically find a good place too. Like she said, okay, I want to stay in Florida. Help me find, a place. And I can look at a map and it kind of lights up. And I've done some for clients that have moved to Oregon and moved to California. And, So how to get in touch with me on all of this. So whether it's clarity about, your life purpose or where to live or your love life or your career or, really getting clear on grief with, somebody who's left you that you just feel so, so sad about, and we can talk to them. My website is enchantedeye.com, and my email is cheryl@enchantedeye.com. You can also find me on Facebook at Enchanted Eye. I'm at Enchanted Eye everywhere. Or you can find me through Auretha. She knows where to find me.
And Cheryl's name is CHERYL at enchantedeye.com, and her last name is Merz, MERZ.
So you got it.
Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing with us, because I just believe that there are spiritual women that are forerunners for all of us, that we do that for each other in different areas. And so I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story. And, we'll just really look forward to seeing what happens with you and your international self and where you end up. So thank you.
I will keep you posted.
And, I want to thank everyone for listening. This is Auretha Callison, and my website is auretha.com, AURETHA.com, and it's Auretha like Aura. And there is, I'm going to be sharing a lot more interviews with amazing people, and really just sharing stories from people that are moving forward spiritually, entrepreneurs, and really people that are making the most out of their lives. So thank you for listening, and I will look forward to chatting with you all again. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.